everyone, and welcome. I'm Hope Himel-Benson. I'm so excited you're here today because today's conversation is going to be such a game changer, especially if you're running a private practice. We're talking about how hiring a virtual assistant can help grow your private practice, and I'm thrilled to introduce Gaynell Langston. Gaynell is a virtual assistant who specializes in helping mental health businesses run more smoothly and help them reclaim their time and peace of mind. I'm so excited for you to hear her insights and discover what's possible when you stop trying to do it all yourself. So let's dive in. Hi, Gaynell, and welcome.
Hi, I'm Gaynell Langston, owner of Hire Gaynell. Hope, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited to share some insight with providers to help them run their practice more smoothly. And today we're going to talk about how a VA can help you have peace, or how it can really help you do more as a provider in assisting your clients. And so I'm excited to talk about this today.
Wonderful. I'm so excited you're here. When I met you, I was just so excited to talk to you about how you help therapists because I have so many clients who are therapists and I know that they struggle just trying to do it all. And naturally, until you meet someone who offers a particular service, we sort of have these preconceived ideas of maybe what they do, or we're not sure what they do or what they don't do. But oftentimes it's like, well, is that a service I can afford, or what would it be like to work with someone? Because it can be difficult to let go of control of certain parts of your business. So I want to dive into all that today so that you can share your experience and wisdom with clinicians who maybe have thought about hiring a virtual assistant, but just kind of hesitant or didn't even know where to turn or who offered that service so that we can give them that information so that they can feel more comfortable about making that decision for their practice. So I first want to start off with what types of professionals do you typically support?
That's a great question. So, anyone in the mental health field, that can be a psych nurse practitioner, that can be licensed professional counselors, it can be licensed marriage and family therapists, it can be clinical social workers, it can be a wide variety of providers.
So mental health providers in a private practice or a group practice, right?
Yes, yes.
So when clients first come to you, when they reach out to you, you start working with them, what are maybe some of the challenges that they're having or the concerns, the reasons that they're reaching out to you?
That's a great point. I have to be honest, I found that each provider has their own set of issues or their own set of problems that needs to be solved. So no one provider is the same. Let me say that. But for instance, I can give you some examples. I've had a psych nurse practitioner. Her deal was getting someone who can bill her claim properly. That can pose a challenge sometimes for providers, and it's specifically for Medicaid claims, but that was something she needed to work through and needed help with, and someone she can trust to bill. I've had other issues, like someone they just need to stay on the phone with insurance companies because it can take all day. And they just need someone who can take that over, and it gives them, it frees up their time. But there's many issues that providers can have. Yeah.
So, what are some of the things that maybe in your experience, maybe clinicians, once you started working with them, expressed to you about like maybe they were a little resistant at first and then something just changed and they're like, I'm finally ready to get help. What sort of like tipped them to feeling like, okay, they were ready to reach out to someone? So, what might some clinicians be struggling with that maybe they're like, wait, yeah, that's me. It might be time.
Yeah. I think it's truly trusting someone who knows how to handle someone else's PHI, or, the very important parts of being a practitioner. And that's important. And I think for me, it helps a little bit that I am HIPAA certified. And so with that being said, I do know how to navigate handling other people's personal information. I think that's a big, big deal. Her provider is just hard for her to allow me to take over anything, but that gave her peace, realizing that and knowing that, I would know what to do given dealing with someone's important information.
I appreciate you saying that because that's something that virtual assist like a general virtual assistant, like if someone reached out to a virtual assistant agency that just is more general, not specializing in clinical healthcare, mental health practices, that would naturally be something that you would be concerned about that they may not be aware of. HIPAA and handling protected health information, client confidentiality, and the professionalism that goes along with that. Because not only are you handling client records or insurance or maybe working inside their EHR or practice management system, but you may be talking on the phone with their patients or clients. And so knowing that it's very important and that there's actually certification that someone can go through to be a HIPAA compliant provider. So with that, I imagine that you offer BAA agreements. So all that gets signed so that someone can work with you very confidently. Yeah, wonderful. We talked about this a little bit in the beginning. Let's give like some real life examples of tasks that a virtual assistant can help a private practice owner with to free them up from those things so that they can either focus on adding more clients to their caseload or maybe just making more space in their week so that they have more time for themselves. So, what are some things that a virtual assistant can help a practitioner with to help them grow their practice?
Sure. The one thing I'll mention first is credentialing. That is definitely a big one. And the reason I say that is because to get on the network of different insurances requires you to get on their panel. You have to fill out an application. You have to send them your credentials. There's much that goes into that up front. And sometimes they just don't have the time or they just don't know how to fill out certain questions. And it can be a time consuming trying to research, let alone fill it out. And so I know that's one of the number one things I can definitely help with. I have definitely seen providers get relieved just me taking over that paperwork. So paperwork, that too, in and of itself is a lot. So I can definitely take on all of that. I want to say the insurance, that's another big one. Dealing with insurance companies can be really hard and having to stay on the phone to get benefits, having to stay on the phone to check on claims. Oh my gosh, it can take a lot of time that you just don't have. And it can take something that maybe can get settled in one day and turn it into a few weeks unknowingly because you have to get off the phone. You have to hang it up, And so those for sure are ways that we can help. I do want to add sometimes claims can get pretty messy where you have to do research and you have to keep calling to follow up and that also can be time consuming. And so I definitely have firsthand experience uh, kind of solving those problems and giving providers peace.
Oh my gosh, those are so important. And like you said, when a provider or therapist is handling all that themselves and trying to manage that in between client appointments and keeping things on track. And you have to do that during business hours because that's when insurance companies are open, but you're trying to see clients during business hours. I can't imagine just the relief of having somebody that they trust to handle that for them and to be able to give that level of customer service to their clients to be able to handle it. Maybe there's a problem with the client's insurance or billing. I know another thing that you mentioned to me that I never even thought about VA helping with is payroll. So if someone has a group practice, and because oftentimes you may have a group practice and you have a number of therapists, but maybe you're not ready to hire a payroll company or a full-time in-house bookkeeper or accountant. So I never thought about that being something that a virtual assistant can help with.
Yes, I know. So, like there being like, it's not like a cookie cutter way. I can give you some fun ways in which I help with payroll. Everybody has different needs, which is very interesting. And maybe it's not fun to all, but so for one provider, I can pop in the Gusto, I can approve timesheets, I can check it against calendars, I can do different things like that, and then run the payroll from Gusto. That's one way. Another provider I work for, they literally just want me to calculate things in a spreadsheet and make sure I add this up and then maybe check back against visits and things like that. And once I do that, that's all they want me to do. And then there's other providers that have more, I guess you can say, in-depth calculating and different things like that. But it varies. It varies. But yeah.
I think that's amazing because I would have never have thought about the payroll aspect of a private use for a virtual assistant. I love that. So I know that today we're more aware of and comfortable with working with people remotely than pre-2020 when everybody kind of got forced to learn how to do that. So imagine that's really like open up the opportunities for you to be able to assist practitioners no matter where they live. How is it, or have you had practitioners who aren't sure about working remotely, or when they come to you, they're like already confident with working with someone remotely just because of how the world has evolved and technology has evolved?
Oh my goodness. I think that's an excellent question. So far, I have had providers that embrace it. They haven't given me much pushback or any issue. Like they've been ready. So
Well,
mhm.
I think it's so wonderful because I think when maybe we hear the word VA or virtual assistant, you're thinking of like an executive assistant or something like that. And maybe you've never thought about a VA for a private practice or a health practice, but it's so doable today because all of it is happening online. So your billing is online, your EHR is online, everything is online. So someone doesn't have to physically be in your office to access client records like the paper generation. So um, that was one of the things that when I met you was like this aha moment. It's like there are so many options that I believe that therapists maybe just don't even realize is such a viable option, like a virtual assistant who specializes in private practice. So whether they call you a virtual assistant or an office manager or whatever they feel comfortable with, just knowing like you are their trusted partner in helping to manage their practice. And you can do that no matter where their practice is located. Do you find that people tend to be more comfortable working with a virtual assistant if they're in the same town just because it's or state because that's the affinity, or people are just more open in general now? Like they could be in Philadelphia or Chicago or Miami, and they don't care where their virtual assistant is.
When I first started out, I did think it would be a big deal being in the same state or locally, but I have come to find out through experience that is not the case. I mean, I can tell you I've worked with providers in California, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Texas, Oklahoma. So,
I love Yeah, I love that. I found the same thing too with my website design practice. I initially started working with people locally, and I'm sure you have this experience that once you start working with a therapist or mental health practice, they're in online groups and someone is asking and they're sharing information and they live in another state. And because that person who happens to have used you and maybe live locally was so pleased and recommended your services, people just don't care where anybody lives today if it's gonna be a remote partnership. So I think that's wonderful. I love how technology has just afforded that opportunity, similar to telehealth. It allows therapists to be able to serve clients who live in other parts of the state or in other states if they're multi-licensed. And so consumers are no longer limited to just the providers in their local area. And the same for therapists. They're no longer limited to professional service providers to support their practice just in their local areas. Literally, like the world is your oyster now. Oh, so I want to talk about once someone decides, okay, it's time. I really would like to work with a VA. What's the best first steps for a therapist interested in working with a VA? And maybe do they need to have some systems in place first, or can you help them build those things, like things that people might not be sure of that they can feel confident, either knowing, okay, I can go ahead and get that done if I need to get that done before I reach out, or if I reach out to a VA, they can help me get systems in place to make this relationship work.
Yeah. It really depends on the skill set of the VA and what the provider is looking for. This field, it varies a lot and is very flexible. So you have many different skill sets and the needs are a wide variety. And so I would first recommend that the provider kind of know for sure what they're looking for. For instance, you may not have an EHR. I've dealt with providers that were just nervous about getting anyone EHR. There's too many out there. I always recommend, okay, we'll start in availability. You know what I mean? That's very basic. It's easy. Just do availability, pull up your client stuff there, and then we can work through everything else. And so I always recommend that for starting out, no clue what you want, availability, just do availability. For those who they've chosen an EHR, that's going to help the VA a lot. But then you can talk about, have they used that EHR? There's still experience in the type of EHR. It can vary so much. And so you just want to look for those things. Maybe look for a VA for sure that's HIPAA certified. And then if they've had experience in the EHR you already have, if you don't have one, do they know how to use availability? Different things like that. I think that'll help smooth things out the best. And everything else, as far as like making the calls, those things are easier to navigate. Yeah.
That is such great advice because and I love how you mentioned, like, maybe they have an EHR, but sometimes you haven't even set it up because time is so limited. I mean, it's happened with me. I bought HoneyBook. That's a popular client management system used in service-based businesses. I paid for that subscription for a year and never set it up. Didn't even set up my calendar or my client intake forms because there's a learning curve and there's a lot of steps behind that. So I love that. That's something to be aware of. Like they may already have an EHR and they haven't set up, but being able to ask the VA, are you experienced with this? Can you help me get that set up? And just imagine the efficiency that they'll start to have in their practice once it is actually set up. I think just hiring a VA and getting that done alone in the first few weeks, what a difference that can make in their practice. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any common mistakes you can think of or aware that or maybe people need to be aware of when hiring a VA for the first time? What are some things that they want to be cautious about and avoid?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. I have a concern that I've noticed when building new relationships with some providers that maybe have had previous VAs. And this is not a knock to general VAs at all, but I do say use caution if you're wanting a VA and that person is not HIPAA certified. If they're not specific to the mental health field, I would use caution because they don't understand. They'll probably want to share passwords and they'll want to do all these different things that it's not really ethically healthy. Can I say that?
Yeah.
Not for the profession. And so I will just use caution when you're looking for VEs, make sure that person is definitely more niche to this field and has experience in this field. That's going to be important. I can't tell you. I've dealt with a provider before where she had more general VAs and they don't know what they're doing. And it's hard to say and they don't know what they're doing. And so it creates a irritating or a difficult relationship between the provider and the VA. And it can give them a bad experience. It really can. And I've had to like come along and then you coach them and then you help them feel more comfortable. And I can't tell you enough how it makes a difference. And so I would just say use caution. If it's a general VA, look for someone who's literally in the mental health field.
Yeah. I agree. When it comes to confidential client or patient information, you really can't afford to work with any provider who doesn't understand that and isn't trained in patient confidentiality and HIPAA because their whole practice is at risk, as well as your client, your patient's confidentiality and well being. So, on that note, like, what things do you think make for a really great VA and therapist relationship, like that working relationship? What are some things that a therapist or practice owner needs to bring to the table to make a successful relationship with a well-trained, experienced VA for private practice?
I love these. These are really great questions. I would definitely say feedback, feedback and expectations, just being clear on that and communicating, like maybe setting up meetings once a month with your VA or being sure to pop in and say, hey, how are things going? Checking in with each other. Things like that help tremendously. I do want to say that you kind of learn each other. I want to say when you set your expectations and you say, hey, I like this done this way. I would like this to be done on this day, kind of giving the direction. If you are very good at saying, hey, can you do this every Friday for me? And I mean, that would be great. Like, hey, I love when you do this, blah, blah, blah. If you can do that, oh my gosh, you're on your way toward the winning relationship with your VA. Because we love it. Yeah.
That makes sense. Whether you're in the office or out of the office, working with someone, communication just makes for a very healthy, positive, successful relationship. So, know what you want, expressing that, giving someone like the room and space to now go and do it, and then providing that feedback. So, wonderful. Okay, let's see. A few other questions. So, when working with a VA, and I know every practice is different. Typically, can someone start off with maybe like just a few projects or just like a one time project or a short term project? Or does it have to be like an ongoing, like permanent commitment? I think sometimes that's one thing that people might be afraid of. It's like, I can only use a VA if I sign a 12-month contract. So, how do VAs usually work?
Yes. No, no. I wanna say I would recommend if you're uneasy about it, start small. I've worked with a provider that I was recommended to her, but she still felt a little uneasy, so we started small, and that start small meant just doing a rate increase for her. That was it, and I handled the rate increase. She enjoyed the first one. She said, "Can you do another one?" Okay. I did the other one for her. She was like, "Oh, I have some providers that need to be credentialed." Okay. It can be little small things if you feel uneasy, that helps open up more. Or I can say sometimes you'll have project management VAs. If you just have this big project that you need, you can certainly get that done and you don't have to worry about committing to them for a year. And there are VAs that do month to month contracts as well. So like if you need them for 3 months and you do that month to month, you say, hey, you know what? I don't think I want to continue next month. And that's fine. There's no issues there. So yeah, you can definitely do that.
Love that. And as you were saying that, I was thinking maybe someone does have someone internal in their office that they work with, but maybe that person's going to be going out on maternity leave or family leave or something for 3 months. Like hiring a virtual assistant like you who can step in and take over those things, someone who's already trained in the business of mental health versus trying to go to a staffing service or just letting that position just be vacant for a period of time, which thinking that they can handle that on their own, where it's really going to pile up and back up and it's just going to cause a lot of stress for the practice. So I love that idea of just, even some project-based work. So, as we're wrapping up, let's talk about specifically what different services you offer so we can paint a picture of what's really possible for a clinician. And if they're seeing this and they're like, you know what, I never thought about that. And that's something that I would love to explore. And I can reach out to Gay now and learn more about it. So, tell us about your individual services.
Yes, sure. So I do credentialing as an individual service. And of course, that's getting you in network with any insurance panel that you would like. I do also offer a free panel if one of the panels happens to be closed. That does happen. And we just switch to another and I'll do that one for you. I also do simple practice billing as a standalone. Some providers, that's all they need, just the billing. And so I'll do that as a standalone. If it's not in simple practice, I don't do it. You would have to do the virtual assistant admin hours, in which I do offer that as well. And though that's customizable. So it's a minimum of 8 hours a month, but it can be customized from there. And so I also offer that. And then I have a new service launching June 1st, and I'll be offering bookkeeping. And I think that's going to be exciting. Some providers do need that service as well. And of course, I do if they need payroll and things like that, I can do any of that as well. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. I mean, I think you cover, like, all the major things that, practice owners have to spend their evenings and weekends trying to get those things done if they want a really nice, profitable load. You go into business for yourself or you open a private practice for more time freedom and financial freedom, but in reality, unless you're partnering with someone to do these administrative tasks and you're doing them yourself, now you're doing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 jobs. And you just want to be a therapist and help a lot of people. So thanks for sharing that. So, in addition to those services, and you mentioned you have bookkeeping coming up, is there anything else that you offer?
Yes, I do. I do happen to offer administrative coaching and consulting. I do that for providers and as well as mental health virtual assistant. So yeah.
So, if someone is looking to set up a private practice, you're available to help them do that. Is that what you're referring to?
Uh, Only with the administrative part of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just exciting, really, to learn that there's someone who can help with all of these administrative tasks. So, if someone is listening today and they want to learn more about working with you or the best way to connect, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yes, thanks. The best way to connect is going to be through my website. There, you can book a free consult. You can learn about pricing. You can get to know me a little better. And that's at www.hiregaynell.com.
I wanted to ask, just sort of in closing, before we wrap up, what's one or two things that you have learned as a business owner that has made a real difference for you? So, something you like to pass along to others who are building a business too, just like a business tip, business owner to business owner.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. In doing like so much research and learning and experiencing, I have found that doing is a lot more effective than just sitting back and thinking about it. And when I say that, I mean you want this thing, you want to see your business at this certain place, and you can sit down and you can plan and you can think. Sometimes there are things you just won't know you're wanting until you get in the practice of doing it. And so I've just discovered taking that step, taking that leap to just take some action. What's the action that you can do today that'll help tomorrow for your business? And that has helped me grow a lot. Just saying what you're doing to different people, sort of like meeting you. Hope it was wonderful. I mean, just saying this is what I do, and now we're here. It's little things like that that I think helps build the business in ways that you can't plan for, if that makes sense. Just taking some action, even if it's small steps.
Wonderful.
That's one.
Such wisdom.
And in addition to taking action, I wanted to give something to the providers that would look at this podcast. So sometimes providers aren't sure of where to look for help. Where can I find the VA? How can I find the right VA? What do I do in that process? And I just want to add that there is a lovely directory out there that you can go to. It's the Productive Therapist, and they have a directory with a bunch of VAs on it. And so you don't have to just come to me, but you can go there and look for many different VAs for what you're looking for, the skills, the EHRs, different things like that. I think that's going to be a game changer for some providers who don't know where to look.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Wow. I mean, it's amazing how many resources are out there, but we really don't know about them. And so generous of you to share that, as well as your time and your experience and your heart with us today. It's so evident how much you just love working with other therapists and supporting them in their private practice. Helping them helps them make a greater difference in the lives of the clients that they're called to serve. So it is a joy and privilege to be called to help the helpers. And in closing, I know many private practice owners are going to walk away from this conversation feeling hopeful, maybe even breathing a little easier knowing that support is out there. So if today's episode resonated with you, I encourage you to think about where you can invite a little more help into your practice because you don't have to do it alone. So thanks for being with us, and I'll see you the next time.